Okay, so continuing along then. So adhokshaja, aprakrita. So what is aprakrita? Aprakrita is therefore knowledge of Goloka. It's knowledge of Krishna, it's knowledge of Srimati Radharani, it's knowledge of Mother Jashoda, it's knowledge that God is a little blue boy running around, getting chastised by his mother and father, right? This is aprakrita. And it is directly perceived. It's on the Raganuga platform. So why am I mentioning these? Firstly, we should just know them. This is a part of our Krishna conscious philosophy, right? But also because I want to stress this is the nature of knowledge. We can learn what God is not, but at one point we need to learn what God is, right? We can speak negatively about God, but at one point we need to learn positively about God. And to learn positively about God, who can speak about it, right? And this is the point that Krishna is making. The demigods and the sages, they do not know. They do not know, right? They do not know the nature of Krishna. They do not know his origin. Why? Because he created them one day, right? And we'll hear this description again later on as we go deeper into this chapter. One day Krishna created them, and that's all they know of Krishna. In order for this knowledge to be revealed, it must be revealed by mercy. And we will discuss this later on. So what is this principle? The basic principle is, again, I said this last week, if I sat you in a room just to think about life and the world around you, you'd probably end up thinking that there's a God, right? You could deduce that, right? You could maybe deduce that God is beautiful, right? Maybe you could deduce that. You could say a lot of things about God, but you couldn't say anything directly about God, right? You could describe God indirectly. You could describe things about God, but you would never be able to say anything directly. Again, this is what Srila Prabhupada said, right? We know Prabhupada, he would go around preaching and he would say, you are saying we love God, we worship God. I'm here to tell you though, who is God, right? Because they can't answer that. Most people can't answer that question. Even people who believe in God, they'll say, oh, God is the most powerful, God is this, God. They'll say things about God, but they won't say anything directly about God, right? They'll describe the qualities of God indirectly. So Srila Prabhupada, he says, right, yeah, they'll say something very simple, right? God is this, God is that. But Prabhupada says, no, we are here to say something specific about God. Who is God? What does he like to do? Where does he live? What is his name? This is the purpose of the Krishna conscious mission, right? This is what Srila Prabhupada would say. Is avyaktat? Not to my knowledge, unless you want to use avyaktat as a synonym of one of these five. If you read Mayavadi literature, which I don't recommend, they will stop at the third level, aparoksha. But in our line, in theistic Vedanta, we continue to adhokshaja and aprakrit. So yeah, sort of like Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Mayavadis will stop at Nididhyasanam, but Gauriya Acharyas will go into Vandanam afterwards. That the natural result of our realization should be glorification and praise. Anyways, so these levels of knowledge, okay, so what Krishna is making the point, you can't know anything about me. And who knows anything about me? The sages don't know anything about me. The demigods don't know anything about me. They know something about me. Maybe I'm being a bit dramatic, but basically they don't know my origin. They don't know this true esoteric confidential knowledge. Okay. And we find this proven in Srimad Bhagavatam. Again, I don't want to speak forever on this 10th chapter. It just is very, very deep, right? But we find this practically proven, right? We know Brahma. What does Brahma do? Brahma, he sees Krishna manifesting his pastimes on earth. And he sees Krishna and he sees this little blue boy. He's apparently the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so Brahma becomes curious and he goes down and he looks. And what does he see? He sees that this Krishna is eating with his left hand. He's taking his prasad and he's eating with his left hand, right? And he thinks, what? Is this the Supreme Personality of Godhead? He doesn't even know which hand to eat with. And so Brahma, he sees this and he thinks, no, he's not. I'm going to test him, right? And therefore he steals all of the calves and all the cowherd boys. You know, it's a very beautiful and long pastime, right? And like this, he steals them completely bewildered, right? Why? Because the demigods, they do not know the fullness of Krishna. They don't understand his fullness. They're very easily bewildered. Indra thinks the same thing, right? What does Indra do? Krishna, he very he very nicely tells everyone, he preaches, one second, I'll just mute Srinivasa Prabhu. I think they're on transit somewhere. So Indra, so Krishna, what does he do? He very nicely preaches Purva Mimamsa philosophy. And he says, what is the point? What is the point of us offering all of these offerings to the demigods? Have you ever seen them? Do they do anything for you? The rain's going to rain either way. It doesn't matter if we do any sacrifices, right? Krishna very sweetly, he speaks his philosophy. What's the point of doing any sacrifices, right? Instead, let us offer our sacrifices to Giriraj Govardhan, right? To beautiful Mount Govardhan, right? And so they all do that, right? And actually, my spiritual master, he describes that when Krishna is when they're offering all of the offerings to Govardhan, Krishna, obviously, he expands into the form of Govardhan. And with one hand, he takes and he consumes all of the offerings. And with the other hand, he raises it up and he begins to taunt Indra, right? He raises it up to the heavenly planets and he waves at Indra, saying, look at all of your offerings and I'm consuming all of them, right? So like this we hear. And what does Indra do? Indra says, well, what is this Govardhan? What is this Krishna disrupting my plans? And Indra, he begins to manifest the end of days. He begins to manifest the end of the universe. No problem, Srinivasa Prabhu. No problem at all. And he begins to manifest the end of the universe. He begins to flood Vrindavan, right? And what happens at the end, he realizes I've done a very big mistake. And so he goes to who does he go to? He goes to Brahma, right? And he tells Brahma, I've done a very, very bad mistake. I've tried to I've tried to kill them all, right? I've tried to kill Krishna and I've tried to kill all of his associates. And Brahma, he begins to say, you're such a fool, Indra. How could you do this? But then Brahma thinks, oh, wait a second. I did the same mistake just recently, so I can't be too heavy on you. And so he tells him the solution. And so Indra, with a lot of repentance, he goes down to Krishna and he repents, right? And offers very nice gifts. So like this happens, right? And so we might think, okay, well, that shows the demigods that they don't know, but they do learn their lessons eventually. But what does Indra do much later on? Krishna, he steals a tree, right? He steals a tree from Indra's garden. And again, Indra becomes very angry and he begins to attack the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the lesson is not one easily learned, right? So we see this not just theoretically, not just philosophically, but also in terms of pastimes, right? We see this acted out. The demigods do not know the true nature of Krishna. They become very bewildered. Narayan, Paramatma, Vishnu, this they can understand, God, right? The ruler of the universe. But Krishna, the sweet Supreme Personality of Godhead, eating his food with his left hand, that is a bit beyond the worldview of the demigods. Okay, so we've spent 1 hour discussing 2 shlokas. Let's move on to the next shloka, and then we will take our 5-minute break. I'll recite the Sanskrit, and then maybe we can have Damini Mataji can recite the English. Yo mam ajam anadim cha vetti loka maheshwaram asamuddha samartyeshu sarva papaih pramucyate.
He who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the supreme Lord of all the worlds, he only, undiluted among men, is freed from all sins.
Jai. Okay, so we've come onto this text and we'll only discuss it a tiny bit. But our acharyas have a lot to say about it. Krishna, he's continuing now. Vishwanath Chakravarti, no, actually, Baladev Vidyabhushan, he says in the second chapter, in the second text, Krishna has described who doesn't know him. And now in this text, he has described who does know him, right? Who does know Krishna? And who is that person? He's that person who knows these qualities of Krishna. And these qualities of Krishna, they are very specific. Again, people might say, oh, you know, that is very nice that you are worshipping Lord Krishna. I worship God Ganesh. I worship Lord Shiva. I worship Indra, right? Actually, I still remember we were at an outreach event And one person said this to Devamrita Swami. He said very proudly, he said, I'm not feeling much taste, even though I'm worshipping Krishna, I am worshipping Ganesh, I am worshipping Brahma, I'm worshipping at every single temple, and yet I'm not feeling any taste. I'm worshipping all of the gods. And Devamrita Maharaj very, very sweetly smashed him on the spot, which is very rare to see, because Devamrita Maharaj is normally in an outreach mood, right? But he smashed him in a very outreachy way, right? The issue is, if we consider Krishna to be on the same level as the demigods, right, then good luck, right? But Krishna, he is very distinct, right? He's very distinct to any other individual, any other personality in existence. And our acharyas, they stress it in this text. One who understands Krishna in this very unique position, one who truly understands the origin of Krishna. This person, right, he is not bewildered. This person knows. This person, they understand. And what do we understand? Krishna, he is ajam, right? He is birthless. He is, but is that a comment or a question, Srikanta Sena Prabhu?
It's a question. Like when it says vetti lokam, knows me as Loka Maheshwaram, what is the know? Like, do I just, oh yeah, I read it, I know it, or is it realized knowledge?
Oh no, this is realized knowledge, because our acharyas, they connect this to janma karma chame divyam. They say it's a very similar principle. So my understanding is that it's very realized knowledge. Again, vetti is also used in that text, right? So yeah, I would say this refers to a meaningfully actually realizing and knowing this knowledge. Okay, so ajam, right? Ajam. What does ajam mean? What is Janmashtami? What are we celebrating on Janmashtami? We are celebrating the birth of Krishna, right? So what does ajam mean? Again, means opposite. Ja means birth. Where are Sanskrit scholars? Being inimical to toast spreads. I feel like that's a reference. It's going over my head. Anti-jam. I get it now. I get it. Sorry. I'm a little sleep deprived. Jai. I appreciate the dad joke. I appreciate the dad joke. No, it's very good. Yes, no, it doesn't mean that Krishna is the opponent of strawberry jam. Let's see. I'm going to call out again. Shivam Prabhu. What would ajam mean? Jam means birth. Means the opposite.
Not birth, or like unborn?
Unborn, there we go. Yes. Not birth, you could have gotten away with. That's probably the most awkward way you could have said it. But unborn is much nicer than not birth. Okay, so ajam, right? Krishna, he is unborn, right? So this means he's not like, well, he's not like me at least. Maybe all of you are pure devotees who have descended to spread your mercy around. But at least me, I'm born of the result of many, many material desires, and therefore I am born and I will die and I will be born again, right? Like this, we find Krishna, he is distinguishing himself against all of the souls in this world, right? And distinguishing himself from all the souls in this material world. Krishna, he's saying he's something very special, but he distinguishes himself further against the sadhana siddhas, right? Because he says he is eternal, right? And if he is eternally unborn, eternally in this position, anadim literally means without origin. We find this again in Brahma Samhita. Anadir adir govindaha. He is the originless origin of all reality. So he is anadim, right? The sadhana siddhas are not anadim. They are not without origin, because the sadhana siddhas, well, who can tell me? We've discussed this before, but we didn't touch upon it since then. What is a sadhana siddha? Again, I'll pick on someone. Vidhi Mataji. What is a sadhana siddha?
Somebody who does sadhana or bhakti to achieve something. So they have an ulterior motive to do the sadhana.
No, not exactly, not strictly. I wouldn't say that. That's a very good guess, but that's not what a sadhana siddha is, because a siddha means perfect. So they're already perfect. Somebody with an ulterior motive is not perfect. Does anyone else want to guess? It's always intimidating to go after, but does anyone else know? So yeah.
Can I have a go?
Oh, Tarun Prabhu and Srikanta Sena Prabhu unmuted at the same time, so you'll have to scissors, paper, rock. Okay, Tarun Prabhu, please go.
Siddha in some ways kind of realized of that specific, who has achieved the perfection in the sense that he has achieved the science of it. He has realized it. So sadhana siddha means that specific sadhana in the specific purpose, they have become perfect. That specific, how would I put it? They did not just know, they have realized it to the perfection.
Yes, okay, that's very good. How would we define that then in comparison to the next point of the nitya siddha?
Yes. So in that respect, the nitya siddha doesn't need to perform sadhana siddha in order to reach perfection, because they're eternally associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whereas those who at some point or another have decided to leave the Supreme Personality of Godhead need to perform sadhana in order to achieve that perfection, to know Krishna. And so in that way, you would say that there is, at least in terms of their, not their eternality in terms of their soul and their existence, but in terms of their position with the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah. So, as Prabhu has said, both a siddha, as Taran Prabhu has nicely said, and then as Srikanta Sena Prabhu has also nicely added, the sadhana siddha is made perfect through their sadhana. They were a conditioned soul, and they've now become a perfected soul. They emanate from Mahavishnu, right? The nitya siddhas have always been perfect. They've been perfect for all eternity backwards, and they will always continue to be perfect for all eternity forwards. Okay, they will never, So they are always in that position, and they always have been in that position. Mother Jashoda, Rupa Manjari, Nanda Maharaj. These are nitya siddhas, right? There's never been a point where Krishna was like, oh, I don't have a mother, and some conditioned soul through sadhana attained perfection, and now suddenly Krishna has Mother Jashoda, right? That is not the case. Mother Jashoda is nitya siddha. For all eternity, she has existed as the mother of Krishna, right? Sadhana siddhas, on the other hand, were at one point conditioned, and they perform their sadhana, and then they become fully perfected. Of these two, which one is the highest? Who knows? Who can tell me? Which one is better, the sadhana siddha or the nitya siddha? I'll let everyone put their votes in. Okay. Srinivasa Prabhu and Katyayani Mataji reckon nitya siddha. Srikanta Sena Prabhu has asked an existential question. What do the rest of us think? We've got two votes in, and a third option, a none of the above. What do the rest of us think? Damini Mataji, what do you reckon?
It almost sounds like a trick question. I'm thinking almost that the fact that both kind of got to the end goal is more important than where they started.
Yes, Jai, a very sweet realization. What do you reckon, Vishaka Mataji?
Sorry, I missed the question.
What's better, nitya siddha or sadhana siddha? Even if you zoned out, it's a 50-50.
Sadhana siddha?
Okay, interesting. And then I'll ask one more person. Who's my last person to volunteer their thoughts on the issue? Vidhi Mataji, have you shared your? Let me read through. No, Vidhi Mataji, what do you reckon?
It is a trick question, Prabhu. So
Okay.
between the two, if we have to select, then it looks like sadhana siddha. Reason being, the reason I would say is because they're constantly purifying themselves to get to that point. So that's why I would say it's them.
Okay. Well, I reckon we've all had our jabs. Srila Prabhupada writes that neither is superior. So those of you who caught me out on my nasty question were correct. Prabhupada says actually, and this is heavy language. Don't worry, you haven't been offensive. If any offense has been made, I'll carry it on my back. But Srila Prabhupada says actually it is offensive to consider one to be greater than the other, because both are siddha, both are perfected. Once Srila Prabhupada was also asked this a separate time, and Prabhupada said the emphasis is on siddha, not on nitya or on sadhana, right? So both are siddha, both are perfected. Sometimes you'll see, and I'm sorry to say, but I would say most of them, not all of them. I would never say, I wouldn't even say most of them, but I think to me it looks like a symptom of a more neophyte understanding of the philosophy. Many people will want to expound the glories of their guru, right? And so they'll say, my guru is definitely a nitya siddha. He is a nitya siddha. He is a nitya siddhi. He has to have been a nitya siddha, right? Because they think nitya siddha means better, right? Firstly, it's very difficult for us to tell who is siddha, right? So you have to be rather confident to propound such things. Such faith should be that you should have faith that your spiritual master is very advanced. Don't get me wrong, but to confidently push this onto others is something that's also a little higher, right, than personal faith. Furthermore, if one's spiritual master is a sadhana siddha, right, to glorify the spiritual master as siddha is very nice, but to say nitya siddha so as to imply that it's better than sadhana siddha is offensive to all of the sadhana siddhas who are in such great positions. We would do well to receive the mercy of the sadhana siddhas, right? Many great acharyas and sadhus in our line, in history and today, are sadhana siddhas, right? So Srila Prabhupada says both are equal. One is not better than the other. Nitya siddhas, they emanate from Balaram directly, and sadhana siddhas emanate from Mahavishnu. Yeah. Yeah, so they emanate from different origins, but yeah, okay. So all of that, to make that point, please keep that concept fresh in your mind. I made that slight detour because I remembered that we discussed this earlier, but I never touched on it again. Okay. Trick question. Is Srila Prabhupada what? I asked this once to Bhanu Maharaj indirectly. Yeah, okay, I'll answer it at the end, but please remind me to answer it at the end. Please remind me to answer that question, because that's a very fun question. People love to speculate about Srila Prabhupada's everything, his swarup, his status, his rasa, everything. Anyways, I've gone off on a tangent, not we. So, but I did want to clarify that point. Our acharyas, because you do need to understand it to get the point our acharyas are making. Okay. And I wasn't sure how well you all retained it, which also is my fault. So anadim, right? So Krishna, he said he's unborn, right? Which again, not like those having material births. We're all having births again and again and again and again. Anadim, there, right? Originless. So even though the sadhana siddhas are not having births, this hasn't been an eternal thing, right? At one point, the sadhana siddhas were having births, right? So therefore, Krishna is not just distinct from all the material entities, he's also distinct from the sadhana siddhas. He's something special and unique even among those individuals. And not only them, but the nitya siddhas who have been eternally ajam, they are not loka maheshwaram. They are not the Lord of the worlds, right? And therefore, Krishna, he is unique even against the nitya siddhas. Somebody who knows Krishna's unique standing they can truly, truly be situated in knowledge. And not only this, but this also makes Krishna unique against Brahma and Shiva. Brahma and Shiva can both be described as Loka Maheshwaram, right? Mahesh often is a name of Shiva, right? Brahma, quite literally, is Loka Maheshwaram, right? He has created this world. And yet their standing is not anadi. It's not eternal, right? They might be Loka Maheshwaram, but they are not anadim Loka Maheshwaram. Does that make sense? So Krishna, he is distinguishing himself, right? He is distinguishing himself and knowledge of him. At this point, we will take a break. And with Krishna's mercy, we'll reach the Chatur Shloki today. Okay, we'll have a 5-minute break. I'll see you all at 11:15. Okay, Hare Krishna. Okay, I think the recording's resumed. Yeah, it's telling me it's recording. Okay, so in all of these ways, Krishna, he is distinct, he is supreme, right? Now, we might think, and I think this is almost what Srikanta Sena Prabhu was getting at with his question. This isn't all that hard to grasp, right? Oh, Krishna's hyping this up. Not even the sages know me. But then he says all of this information, and it seems a little bit like, oh, well, that wasn't too hard. Have I now gone ahead up against Bhrigu and all of these great sages, right? Sanat Kumar, have I outdone all of them, right? This doesn't seem all too inconceivable, does it? And so to discuss that, I wish to appeal to a text from Srimad Bhagavatam. Alex Prabhu can read out the English because it's one of Alex Prabhu's favorite texts, Shastra. I'll say the Sanskrit, and then we can hear a discussion about why this knowledge is unknowable, why does Krishna categorize this as being so esoteric. Na chantar na bahir yasya na purvam na pichaparam purvaparam bahischantar jagato yo jagatchayaha tam matvatmajam avyaktam martyalingam adhokshajam gopiko lukhale damna babandha prakritam yatha.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no beginning and no end, no exterior and no interior, no front and no rear. In other words, he is all-pervading. Because he is not under the influence of the element of time, for him there is no difference between past, present, and future. He exists in his own transcendental form at all times. Being absolute, beyond relativity, he is free from distinctions between cause and effect. Although he is the cause and effect of everything, that unmanifested person who is beyond the perception of the senses had now appeared as a human child, and Mother Yashoda, considering him her own ordinary child, bound him to the wooden mortar with a rope.
Jai. So this is a very, very sweet text from Srimad Bhagavatam. And of course, it emphasizes all that we've read, right? That beginning part is a much more detailed version, I would say, of Sarva Loka Maheshwaram and Ajam and Anadi, right? He has no inside, he has no outside. You know, he is the efficient and material cause of all reality. You know, there is no difference between past, present, and future. This is all very opulent. And yet, what does it conclude with? That same unlimited being is tied up by a very limited being. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary, he makes the point. It is very easy for us to conceive that the unlimited can control the limited, but it bewilders our minds that the limited can control the unlimited. Such is the power of bhakti, right? And such is the unknowable nature of Krishna. We see this mentioned in the purport. Srila Prabhupada also makes the same point, as do all of our acharyas. When commenting on this text, they say, how is Krishna unknowable? He is unknowable because he who is ajam is born on Janmashtami. He who is unborn is born from the womb of Devaki, right? He who is originless finds his origin in a prison, in King Kamsa's prison cell, right? He who is Loka Maheshwaram, the Lord of the worlds, is tied up, is bound by his mother, right? This is the unknowable nature of Krishna. Does that make sense? This is the paradox of Krishna. This is why Krishna is so unknowable. I had another point, but we will skip that point for sake of time. Okay, actually, I'm going to stay on that photo just as we read the next few texts. So this is what makes Krishna unknowable, and this is what makes, again, bhakti so esoteric, so supreme, and so essential to understanding Krishna. Soon we're going to come to the point, how then do we know Krishna? And it's only going to be a description of devotional service. That'll be our entire description of how to know Krishna, right? Paramatma, Brahma, Brahman, you can understand these through logical inference. Bhagavan, you cannot. Only through love and devotion can you understand Bhagavan, okay? And so because of this, this is the most confidential knowledge, because the most confidential parts of the Supreme Lord are revealed through Shuddha Bhakti. Okay, let's go on then to texts 4 to 5. Maybe we can have Divyansh Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Do you have your Gita with you?
No, I'm just driving to work, sorry.
Okay, no problem, no problem. We have a, then maybe I will ask Varun Prabhu to read text 4 to 5, the English translation. If Varun Prabhu is present. Jai. Then we will have, I think, who haven't I asked? Tanya Mataji. She can read the English.
Yep.
Okay. Buddhir jnanam sammoha kshama satyam damashamaha sukham dukkham bhavo bhavo bhayam chabhyam mevacha ahimsa samata tushtis tapo danam yasho yashaha bhavanti bhava bhutanam matta eva pritagvidaha. Sorry, it's 2 shlokas.
Yeah, sorry, I just had the text in front, like the basic version, but anyway, because I'm on my laptop. Intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone.
So, first point that is to be made is that our acharyas, they take this text and they use it to make a very important philosophical point. Krishna has emphasized, I am unknowable, for XYZ reasons, no one can know me, all of these things. But he also wants to make it clear that just because one cannot know him doesn't mean that one cannot say anything about him. Right? Just because Krishna is in this radically unknowable transcendental position doesn't mean that the only way we can communicate about Krishna is by saying what Krishna is not. We can also say what Krishna is. The issue isn't that we can't say anything about Krishna. The issue is that we can never say enough about Krishna. This is the issue. And that's why we found this very sweet long list, right? Our acharyas, again, they appeal to this to make that principle. That's why we'll read often when we read Bhagavatam, these long, long prayers, right? And you almost feel bogged up in them sometimes. But why are these long prayers being made? Krishna's Uttama Shloka, right? He is glorified by the greatest poetry, and yet even this poetry struggles to capture him. Such is the nature of Krishna, and such is the nature of the Supreme Lord. Why is Krishna mentioning this? To make it clear. To make it clear that just because I'm saying you can't know me doesn't mean you can't know anything about me. Doesn't mean you can't speak about me. Doesn't mean you can't glorify me. Okay, does that make sense? We do not believe in the neti approach that Krishna is not this, Krishna is not that. Yes, Krishna is not this, Krishna is not that, but Krishna also is something. And therefore, Krishna says this. Also, interestingly, Krishna mentions another general point. This is a long list. I hate to skip over such a rich text, but I'm not going to describe the glories of each one of the things listed. Read Prabhupada's purport. He goes through each word anyways and describes the significance. But one final thing is that Krishna says something very interesting. He says, of all these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone, right? One can also take created to mean arise. All of these things arise in me alone. And this is an interesting point, right? Because Krishna, he's saying that all of these glories, all of these flavors of material existence, they find their source in me only, right? So all of the glories of this material world are also glories of Krishna. And this is a point that he's really, really going to stretch out in the last half of this chapter. Again, of X, I am Y, right? In that section, he's really going to pull it out. Once Srila Prabhupada was having a morning walk with some of his disciples, and one of his disciples said, Srila Prabhupada, I just feel like I am the most small living entity in all of existence. And Srila Prabhupada said, you are not the most anything of existence. So the point that's being made here is that any most anything is a reflection of Krishna's glory, is a reflection of Krishna's qualities, not our own. Okay, then we come to text 6, just because, again, for time's sake, I won't read out the shloka, but maybe we can have I asked Shavina Mataji to read yet? Shavina Mataji could read the English maybe for us.
The 7 great sages, and before them the
no, Mataji, not the Sanskrit, the shloka on the slides. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
That was my bad. I should have specified. That was 100% my bad.
No, that's all right. The most powerful Lord Brahma, the father of all progenitors, Lord Shiva, Manu, Daksha, and the other rulers of humankind, the 4 saintly first-class brahmacharyas headed by Shanka and Sanatana, the great sages Marichi, Atri, Angira, Pulastya, Pulaha, Kratu, Bhragu, and Vaishistha, and my humble self Narada are all stalwart Brahmanas who can speak authoritatively on Vedic literature. We are very powerful because of the austerities, meditation, and education. Nonetheless, even after inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom we always see, we do not know perfectly about him.
Jai, right? This is an extended version of, I would say, the shloka. They're very, very, very similar, right? Because now, what does this shloka say? I'll read it this time. We'll mix it up. The 7 great sages, and before them, the 4 other great sages, and the Manus, progenitors of mankind, come from me, born from my mind, and all the living beings populating the various planets descend from them, right? So who are they? Krishna here is referred to them in a shorter form. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find the whole list. Who are all of these personalities, right? Now, all of these ones are significant. I haven't included the list of the 14 Manus just because it would be illegible on the slide, right? But we find here all of these individuals, they've all come from the mind of Krishna, right? Krishna's manifest all of them, and from them all material reality has come. Krishna, he's basically come back to the point he was making in the second text, right? All of the sages, all the demigods, none of them know anything about me. How could they, right? How can they know anything about me at all? The other point that's being made here is, why can't they know anything about him? Which mode are these individuals in? The 4 Kumaras, which mode of material nature prior to becoming devotees are they in? Goodness, yes, right? So this is the point. I was also making this last week, so I won't make it again. But this is the point. Krishna, he's not in the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness is the highest mode of truth that we have in this material world. And even that doesn't begin to touch upon Krishna's qualities. These sages have cultivated the mode of goodness to the greatest level, and they do not have full understanding of Krishna. Therefore, we fully know, we can fully understand that Krishna is not understandable by any material calculation. Bhagavan. And that's why, again, I don't want to tangent, but these are all very valuable points. This 10th chapter is there's 9 chapters. Well, this whole section is just wonderful. of Bhagavad-gītā. But this is why when people speak about the Ras Leela, they talk about the glories of Srimati Radharani on end. And they do all of these things without having that level of pratyaksha, not of pratyaksha, sorry, of aprakrit, right? Knowledge, which is sometimes called divya pratyaksha. Those who do not have that level of understanding, they will simply understand, they will think that Krishna is under the three modes. If they try to understand Krishna within the three modes, they will think Krishna himself is in the three modes. And then they will speculate and they'll inappropriately think that Krishna, by dancing with all of these gopis, dancing with all of these young girls, right? They will think he is just some lusty rascal. And then they will, as Shastras say, damn themselves to hell because of that, right? They are perpetually condemned because of that. So this sahajiya mindset comes when one tries to understand Krishna within the three modes. But when one understands Krishna on the transcendental platform, then one is able to dive deep into these topics. Okay, so let's keep on going. Text 7. Actually, oh, 1 second. I pressed the wrong direction. Text 7, I'll say the Sanskrit and Rohan Prabhu can say the English. I don't think I've asked Rohan Prabhu yet. Etam vibhutim yogam cha mamma yo veti tattvataha so vikampena yogena yujyate natra samshayaha.
One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mine engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt.
Jai. Okay, so now we've heard Krishna is unknowable. Krishna is unknowable. We don't know anything about Krishna. Who knows about Krishna, right? But now what are we hearing? We are hearing ultimately who does know about Krishna, right? Ultimately who knows about Krishna. And that is the one who engages in unalloyed devotional service, who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power, right? This person, they know about Krishna. And so we find this confirmed in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? Apana lukaite Krishna nana jotno kore tothapi tahar bhakto janoe tahare. So let's have maybe Divyansh Prabhu, please say the English.
Lord Sri Krishna tries to hide himself in various ways, but nevertheless, his pure devotees know him as he is.
Jai. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So here we find the principle. This whole time, right? For all of these 7 shlokas we've heard, Krishna is unknowable. Who knows about Krishna? Even the demigods don't know about him, even the great sages. And we might think this is putting the sages down, but I think in many ways, it's saying even people as glorious and as in knowledge as the sages, even they do not know, right? But then who does know? Who does know? Who truly knows? How can one know? Chaitanya Charitamrita tells us very nicely. The pure devotees know him as he is. And not only do they know him as he is, they know him deeper than even Krishna knows himself. This is the depth of it. The sages, the demigods, all these powerful beings, they can't even begin to speculate about the nature of Krishna's origin. And yet the devotees know Krishna greater than Krishna knows himself. How do we know that the devotees know Krishna greater than Krishna knows himself? How do we know this? There's a very strong proof. How do we know that the devotees have greater knowledge of Krishna than Krishna himself? I'll give you a hint. Yep.
Maybe that's why Krishna have to come as a devotee himself, as a Radha.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is evidence of this. And that's why we find this text so beautifully outlined in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna needs to come in the mood of a devotee to understand deeper truths about himself. Krishna knows everything because he has come in the mood of a devotee. Krishna realizes the devotees know things about him that even he doesn't, and therefore he comes as the devotee. Again, what are the glories of the devotees? We can take it so lightly. Oh, here the Vaishnavas have come. Oh, here some so-and-so senior devotee is coming. Oh, okay, if I have time, I'll go see him, oh, Prabhu, would you like to do some service with so-and-so Maharaj? Oh, no, sorry, you know, I might have to, you know, watch a movie. Sorry, Prabhu, right? Like this, we take so cheaply, but how glorious actually are the Vaishnavas. Even Krishna is hankering to know the knowledge and understanding they have. Knowledge and understanding that the great demigods have, right? Is well beyond them, right? This is the level of understanding the Vaishnavas have. We were speaking about how Mother Jashoda, she ties up Krishna, right? That unlimited truth is tied up. And it's described in the commentary by Sanatana Goswami on the Dhammadarashtakam, that when Mother Jashoda ties up Krishna, that belly of Krishna, what comes out of the belly of Vishnu? The material universe, right? The lotus stem comes out of the navel of Vishnu, right? And from there, the material universe is. So naturally, from the navel of Krishna, all material universes have come, right? And yet what happens? Mother Jashoda takes that navel, takes that belly, and she conquers it. She ties it up. Therefore, Mother Jashoda, this simple, sweet cowherd girl, right? Cowherd woman, rather, we should say, has conquered all of the material universes. All of the demigods and all the material universes have been conquered by Mother Jashoda's sweet love binding up Krishna. My spiritual master, he says that when Mother Jashoda went to tie Krishna's stomach up, right? When she went to do that, all of the potencies that Krishna had, every single potency, his inconceivable potency, his Mahamaya Shakti, every single Shakti fought against her. Every single of all the Shaktis, of all the opulences that we are going to hear, of all the potencies by which Krishna is able to do quite literally anything and everything, by which Krishna is able to manifest all realities, by which all realities are undergirded by which actually only 1/4, right? Only 1/4 of Krishna's opulence is manifested, right, in this material world. Only 1/4 of existence is the material world. All the rest of it is the spiritual world, and all of it is a manifestation of his potencies. All those potencies were fighting against Mother Jashoda, and Mother Jashoda conquered them all. Only the Karuna Shakti was assisting her. The Karuna Shakti, the Shakti of mercy, right? So we can understand there, the mercy of the Lord is very supreme, but also what is the great supremacy of the devotee? The devotee conquers all reality, all knowledge. Again, what is the elevated position of the devotees? We should not take this position very lightly. We should not very lightly think of the devotees. Again, I was speaking about Vaishnava Aparad with avyaktat, right? Now we can think, what is the severity of offending the Vaishnavas, right? If Krishna is willing to let the Vaishnavas conquer, or even unwilling, but still has to have them conquer all of his potencies, right? Then will Krishna take it so lightly if one offends such an elevated individual? Okay, glories of the Vaishnavas are very, we speak a lot about it in devotional circles, and it's still not enough. The glories of the Vaishnavas are very deep. So, having had said that, I think we can begin now our discussion of the Chaturshloki, right? We've built up to it. Now the Chaturshloki begins. And of course, these are very famous. For those of us who have grown up as devotees, these texts are seared into our brains, right? Lots of Sunday school trauma flooding back, right? Of having these texts ingrained in your mind. So, aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samantaha. Right? I'll quickly go over all 4 texts, and then we'll go over them in depth so we can get a feeling for the flow of these 4. So we'll go over the 4 texts, we'll have an activity, and if we have time, we'll begin our discussion. Otherwise, next week. And again, I have to offer my Ashtanga Dandavat pranams and humbly beg for forgiveness to Srinivas Prabhu. I think that means that at the beginning of next week, you will get your open book questions. Actually, you know what? I'll show you them now. I'll show you them at the end of the class today, but you'll see why I want to finish the discussion of the Chaturshloki before I give them. Okay, I am the source of all. Actually, let's have Tarun Prabhu read out the English.
I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts.
Jai. And then we hear the next text, and then we can have Vishaka Mataji say this one after I say the Sanskrit. Machchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha.
The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me.
Cool. And then the next text, maybe we can have Mrunal Mataji will say the English. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam payanti te. Is Mrunal Mataji missing in action?
Oh my God,
No.
I'm so sorry. I thought
Okay.
I'm unmuted. Okay. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And then finally, we have this, and let's have, I think I've asked everyone to read at this point. I don't think anyone hasn't gone. Let's have Srikanta Sena Prabhu can say the English. Tesham evanukampartham aham agyana jam tamaha nashayam yatma bhavasto jnana dipena bhasvata.
To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance.
Jai. Okay, so these four texts summarize the entirety of the Bhagavad-gītā. Okay, these four texts, again, these are the final verses which Krishna speaks, at which point Arjuna explodes into, you have convinced me, right? So these are very, very significant. We are going to study them at depth. Now I've accepted at the end of today, but mainly next week. And hopefully we'll be able to go into a lot of detail regarding them. But before we begin a discussion, I want to just raise one question to all of you. And I want to raise this question. I'll make you all split into groups and you can discuss this question. And then you can come back and share your points. But I want to raise this question as a little thought. It doesn't have so much to do directly with the Chaturshloki, which is why I'm making you do it before we discuss the Chaturshloki in depth. But there's a question that it can often arise. If we're hearing, to show them special mercy, I dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. If we're hearing, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. If we hear Krishna saying this, then why do we need to take any external guidance? Why don't we just do all of these things and say, okay, Krishna will guide me in my heart, right? Why don't we? So why don't we? That's the question. I'll split you into two groups, and each group, please bring up some reasoning about why you think we shouldn't. Please don't argue why we think we should just abandon external guidance, okay? I'll split into two groups, and please give your answer with reference to 3 texts from the Bhagavad-gītā, okay? It doesn't have to be from this chapter, from any chapter, but 3 texts of the Bhagavad-gītā. With reference to 3 texts of the Bhagavad-gītā, I'll give you guys maybe 7-8 minutes to do this. I feel like that should be sufficient time. Please give a reason why we shouldn't simply say, okay, I'm just going to go with external, I'm just going to have Krishna guide me along in my heart this whole time. Okay, does that make sense? Does anyone need any clarification? I'll create the breakout rooms then. Sorry, just give me a second. Okay, I'll open the rooms. I'll see you all in maybe 8 minutes. Well, welcome back. Rohan's having a giggle. I'm not sure why. Oh, so is
we were
Srikanta
like
Sena
mid-sentence.
Oh, were
and I
you
just
mid-sentence?
ended.
He said he was going to present for our team, so he's just.
Did I? I didn't write any notes.
Well, we'll have the other group go first, anyways, because I feel like they were very confident in their presentation, and you guys can can figure it out among yourselves. Not too much. Please pay attention to what the other team says, but you can do your last second thoughts on order then. Okay, so who's presenting from the other team? Not team, it's not a competition. I'm just from the other group. Is it Tanya? Is it Shaka? Is it Vidhi Mataji? You are the main ones speaking when I came into the group. Which one of you is going to present?
So Prabhu, Tanya Mataji and Vishaka Mataji collectively are presenting it.
Okay, please. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
All right, I'll just go with chapter 4. I think Vishaka can cover chapter 3. So the question was, why should we take external guidance and not just understand Krishna ourselves? So in chapter 4, the text 34 says, where Krishna is telling Arjuna, just try to learn the truth by approaching the spiritual master, inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. And the following text also says that having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall into such illusion, for by this knowledge, you will see that all living beings are but part of Supreme Personality. So basically the point is that I think if we try to understand Krishna ourselves rather than approaching the truth through self-realized souls, there will be some form of bias or illusion, because we will try to understand Krishna the way we think, and obviously we have not seen the absolute truth. So hence the path is to understand Krishna through a spiritual master.
Jai.
And also text 3, which was Divyanshu's point, he mentioned text 3, which says that very ancient science of relationship with the Supreme is today told by me. I'm not sure if it's text 3 or I'm not sure, Shaka. Was that text 3?
Text 3 and 34, chapter 4.
Yeah, so text 3 says, the ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and therefore understand the transcendental mystery of the science. Not sure.
I think it was 4.2. Is that?
No, I think
through the
think
chain
it is
of
4.3. Oh, 4.2. No, 4.2 is
4.2. Yeah. Through the chain of disciplic succession is how you should understand Krishna.
Yeah, 4.2 is parampara, and then 4.3 is why Arjuna is qualified to receive the knowledge.
Yeah. And I guess now we can discuss the point from chapter 3, Vishaka.
I was mostly a scribe, so I'm sorry if I'm not as elaborate. So this is when we spoke about chapter 3, verses 35, 25, and 26. So it's where people that are in a lower state of spirituality, they should be associating with people in higher states of spirituality. So I think that's justified by text 35. So they're closer to God, and therefore we should follow in their footsteps. That was a point that Vidhi Mataji made. And in verses 25 and 26, she mentioned that the ignorant one doesn't act according to the principles, whereas the knowledgeable leads people to the right example. By right example. So these are the justifications that we had, where we should be associating with people that have higher knowledge of pure devotees, so we can basically realize the truth. And that would go back to the point and why so it says, why take any external guidance is the question. I mean, you can't be given a textbook and be able to just understand it. You have to have a teacher to show you on how to understand it. I think that's the kind of summary that we came to.
Jai.
Just adding one more point to Vishaka Mataji, what she said, that the knowledgeable people are not bewildered by the 3 modes of material nature, and hence they lead people as an example towards the light and knowledge. So we should follow them.
Jai, well, thank you very much for sharing. Let's hear from the other group now.
Okay, I can try, but maybe someone else can help me out. So I'll just go chronologically. The first verse that we got was 3.21. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So if we did speak to someone on the streets who says that, you know, Krishna is his guru, he doesn't need association or anything else, we can say that we do need to follow in the footsteps of great people and follow the acts that they performed. And it goes into detail about who the acharya is. The ideal teacher is someone who follows the principles of religion and teaches it to the common man. So we should follow by the principles of religion and take up devotional service to other people. So that was the first one. Then we got 4.3. The supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic successions, and the saintly kings understood in their way, but in the course of time the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. So that's just emphasizing the point that information, knowledge, and more importantly, mercy must be passed down through the chain of disciplic succession. A person who's just doing their own thing cannot really advance properly, because mercy is the most important thing that's needed in devotional service. And they can argue that, you know, the science was lost, so maybe it wasn't effective. But 4.8, Krishna says that he comes to reestablish the principles of religion. Bhagavad-gītā was spoken just at that time because it was lost to Arjuna, so it could be reestablished. And the final one is 4.34. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. So that's just pretty much summarizes everything. So a person needs to approach a spiritual master. They need to offer service to them, and only then can the truth be revealed to them. Yeah, that's it.
Jai, very nectar. Did somebody raise their hand?
Yeah, it was me.
Did you wanna comment?
Yeah, just the last point. Yeah. Anyone who's I think it was a point that was being raised by Dharmini in our group. It was the point that anyone who considers themselves sitting at home and being able to just serve Krishna because I'm learning about Krishna by myself is essentially saying that I, through my own means, am able to achieve Krishna. I can see Krishna, I can hear him, he's the one engaging with me. So therefore, what they're saying is, through my blunt material senses, I'm able to achieve that. You know, we just read in 10.2 that the demigods of the sages know Krishna's origin, that it's even difficult for them to understand Krishna. We know, you know, we've been leveraging off Evam Parampara Praptam, that there's this disciplic succession which is actually used. We've learned about how difficult Arjuna has, you know, said it is to control the mind. It's like catching the wind, and all those different experiences that Arjuna has had to try to control the mind. What this person is saying is that they don't have that experience because they're able to do that through their own self. Well, they're just kidding us. They're making a fool of Bhagavad-gītā. They're making a fool of this science of bhakti yoga. Krishna says through all of these means to understand him, to render devotional service to him, and that we can't understand through blunt material senses. Atā Shri Krishna, this is in Bhakti-śāstrī Sindhu, Atā Shri Krishna Namadi, you can't understand Krishna through blunt material senses. You can only understand through someone else by hearing the Shrut Ikshita path, or hearing, seeing through hearing. And one does that through hearing from a devotee of Krishna.
Jai, nectar. Well, thank you both. I think both sides presented very good points. I also have some ideas on the topic, which I'll touch upon next week. Yeah, I'll touch upon it next week. We'll continue on there, just discussing the nature of the texts. A few things before you go. Homework wise, I'm pretty sure all of you would have finished the 10th chapter, right? But in terms of homework, are we all on that same wavelength? If so, please read the first 14 texts and purports of chapter 11. So up to 11 Text 14, it's the universal form. Everyone loves the universal form. So have fun with the chapter. Yeah, that's that. And also before you go, I did promise I would show you the open book questions just briefly. I'm not giving you the assignment yet. I just feel bad because I did say last week I would show you what they are. So the reason why is that the second one of the open book questions is basically just a reflection on the Chaturshloki. That's why I want to discuss it first. And then the first one is just about demigod worship. So yeah, I'll send you guys these questions after we discuss them next week. But I just wanted to keep my vrat to Srinivasa Prabhu regarding the open book questions. Okay, that's that. We just have the one question from Srikanta Sena Prabhu, but I've given you your homework, so if you have to run quickly, feel free to run. Is Srila Prabhupada a Nitya Siddha? I don't know, I think is the most philosophically correct answer. Some people will have different conceptions, right? Some people will have different realizations. But I think philosophically speaking, the best thing we can say is, I don't know. I once indirectly asked this to Bhanu Maharaj by asking him, because he basically said that Srila Prabhupada was experiencing bhava. And I said, well, you know, wouldn't we be saying that he's on the level of prema, right? And now I can't actually remember what he said in response exactly, so I'm not going to quote him anymore. But he basically, it was along the lines of, we can't perceive these things, right? So we might have this confidence, we might have this passion that, you know, he is Nitya Siddha like this, right? But actually we don't know, right? We can't perceive whether somebody is Sadhana Siddha or Nitya Siddha. The only way we can perceive is through the realization of other Siddha devotees. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he presents himself like a Sadhana Siddha. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he said that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was Nitya Siddha, right? So we can understand on the authority of other pure Vaishnavas, but in terms of our own understanding, we can't. So based on what our spiritual master tells us, we should carry that mood forward. But that's an individual question, I guess, based on who one's spiritual master is. I've heard senior devotees propose both options, although the majority of senior devotees I've heard say Nitya Siddha. But I have heard some senior devotees say more along the lines of Sadhana Siddha. As we said, one is not better than the other. Both are equal propositions. So those are just minor details according to the realization of individual devotees. So was Srila Prabhupada a Nitya Siddha? I personally think so. Does he need to be? Is it offensive to say he was a Sadhana Siddha? No. And could he have been one? Potentially. Well, what do I know, right? Very, very high topics to perceive. Does that make sense? Okay, any other questions? Okay, I reckon let's conclude there, and I'll see you all next week.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.